What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, just welcome. My name is Gemma Jade, but today we are going to be going through some more listener stories and or encounters. So I'm kind of just reading these on the fly. I thought it would be super fun, and I really enjoyed the last one, so these are probably going to keep coming as long as you guys keep sending. And if you sent me one and it's not in this video, it'll be in the next one. I'm going up my list, so from the first ones that I got in the Gemma Jade paranormal@gmail.com email, and I'm going right up. If I missed one by accident, don't worry, I go through them every time I do a video, so it'll be in the next one. Anyways, thank you to everyone who sent your stories or encounters in, and every single one is going to go in a video. So again, if yours isn't in this one, check out the next one. But I hope you guys all enjoy this. It's super exciting for me. I really liked doing this. And we have a story from someone who was also in the last listener encounter stories video, and that's Jason Zorn. And Jason, you have sent me so many that I am probably going to do a video or two called The Paranormal Life of Jason Zorn. And here we go. When I worked for the state of Texas for most of the year 1994, my first wife and I were in a little financial bind while preparing to move from our apartment in Palestine, Texas, to a more rural environment in my hometown of Frankston, Texas, where most of my mother's side of the family had lived for generations. Rent was cheaper, neighbors were friendlier, and having 2 young children at the time, the idea of better, more localized schools were also a plus. I needed some time that would be rent-free so I could accumulate the needed funds to get us established, so I found myself needing to ask for help. Fortunately, a very good friend of mine, I'll call him Boyd, and his wife Tina agreed to let me and my family stay with them until we could save up the needed funds. Boyd was a retired McClendon County Sheriff's deputy, so we hit it off right from the start. We carpooled together to and from work at the Caulfield Unit State Penitentiary in Tennessee Colony, Texas, and talked about just all kinds of various topics during transit. One night, while traveling back from work 2 days prior to me and my family temporarily staying with them, he mentioned, almost out of the blue, I just think I should say this in advance so y'all won't be surprised, but our house is, well, kind of haunted a little. I looked sideways at him, me being the driver, and I restated, a little haunted? How in the world can a house be a little haunted? It's either all the way haunted or it ain't haunted at all. So which is it? He chuckled a bit and said, all right, I'd have to go with all the way haunted. But it's always a touchy subject, and there's never any comfortable way of talking about it because people almost always look at you like you're an idiot for even bringing the subject up. I smiled and replied, I'm sure happy then to not feel like a weirdo for the things I've experienced. After that, he relaxed a little bit. When you work in any field of law enforcement, you're expected to be the voice of reason, the professional in the room. People expect you to be the anchor that holds the ship against the storm of insanity. Everything is watched and examined carefully that you do. He then began to fill me in on some strange experiences he and his wife had had in the house. I listened with interest because when I was a kid, I'd always found interests in anything considered weird or whatever. Once he finished recounting these things to me, he chuckled a little and closed with, I know, sounds a little crazy, right? But just thought I'd say, you know. I nodded while still looking forward on the backcountry road ahead, dimly lit by my truck's headlights, which greatly needed cleaning. Our shift ended at 10 p.m., and by 11 p.m. I dropped him off at his house before heading home. The weekend came, and Boyd helped me in moving the majority of my furniture and odds and ends into storage, while my wife and his wife did what most women do, gossip with each other while the men slave. I love this guy. By Saturday evening, we all could finally relax a little. My son and daughter were tucked away in their own room, sleeping soundly. Me, Boyd, Tina, and my wife Jennifer were having cocktails and playing board games on the dining room table. Random chat and laughing, drinks poured, drinks spilled. Tina staggered up from the table to clean up some broken glass from the floor. Broom in one hand, dustpan in the other, she laughed at something my wife had said, and I was listening to whatever Boyd was trying to tell me as I lit a Marlboro, but I was really too buzzed to listen with much focus. As Tina dumped the broken glass into the kitchen trash can, all of a sudden the kitchen cabinet door directly over the stove slammed open loudly. Tina dropped the dustpan as she turned with a gasp to face the cabinet door. Tina's eyes darted to meet Boyd's as he rose from his chair, shaking his head silently and walking towards her. She smiled with hesitation, then began making the final round of drinks. "Is that what you meant the other day?" I asked quietly to Boyd as he sat back down. "Oh, it ain't nothing," he chuckled. "Just things from time to time." For weeks, everything seemed just as normal as any other day. I began believing Boyd had just been pulling my leg about the house being haunted. About a week later, though, I was up late, about 2 in the morning. Everyone else was in bed asleep. I was watching some sci-fi show on TV with almost all the house lights out except for a dim lamp next to the living room couch. Clang! I leapt from the couch, startled. The noise had come from the kitchen. I made my way to the kitchen entrance and peered in. On the middle of the kitchen floor lay a shattered dinner plate, and one of the cabinet doors was wide open. I was thinking, what the freak? I shut the cabinet door and turned to get the broom, and when I turned back, the cabinet door was open again. And not just that cabinet door, but every single cabinet door in the kitchen was open. I awoke one night, I forget the time, but I was headed to the hallway bathroom. I just opened my bedroom door, my wife was sleeping, and I thought I saw Boyd leaving the bathroom and moving down the hall toward the kitchen, and then he just disappeared. Several nights, Jennifer and I would hear knocking at our bedroom door, and when I'd get out of bed to open it, no one would be there. One night, around 3 o'clock in the morning, Jennifer shook me awake. "What?" I demanded. "You need to go and deal with them," she growled. "Deal with who?" I asked impatiently. "The kids. Just listen." I listened, and I could clearly hear children laughing and giggling and talking among themselves. "Go tear their little butts up and tell them to get back to bed," she demanded. So I flipped the covers off, crawled out of bed, opened our bedroom door, and staggered into the darkened hallway lit only by a small nightlight. The kids' bedroom door creaked as I flung it open, expecting to catch them jumping around on their beds and playing. But as the door opened, the laughter stopped, and I saw that both of my kids were sound asleep. I returned, puzzled, to my room where my wife was sitting up in bed, arms crossed and a scowl upon her face. I said, they're asleep." "What do you mean?" she said. "I mean they're asleep, as in the opposite of them being awake." "Are you sure they weren't just faking being asleep?" she said. "Describe to me just how stupid you think I look right now," I answered. I was growing impatient. I was tired. "I'd say no more than usual," she uttered as she rolled over and fluffed her pillow. I threw the covers back as I climbed into bed again. "I'm telling you, the kids were seriously sound asleep, I swear." "Okay then, explain all the laughter and jumping around." "Look, I can't. I just know it wasn't them, all right?" "Fine, shut up," she growled. 3 nights later, I was having trouble sleeping. I decided to make a drink. It tasted pretty dang good, so I made an executive decision to make a second drink. The second drink tasted quite a bit better than the first, so I was fully convinced that the third drink would probably be the best tasting drink of all, and I was right. I hate being completely right all the time, but I've learned to just live with it. I finished washing my glass in the sink, and while putting it away back in the cabinets, I heard whirr, whirr. A puzzled look came over my face. The toy car just sat there. I slowly closed the cabinet door and just stared at the toy police car. I stepped towards it to pick it up when it suddenly rolled backwards into the living room again. Shadow figures moving in the hall at night, knockings, voices and whispers. It wasn't every night. Sometimes days would go by and nothing unusual would happen, and sometimes all day and all night long would be full of continuous activity. For 7 months, life was fairly bizarre, to say the least, but we did finally get moved out. Jason, thank you so much. I love the way you write. I love the way you think. You're funny. These are some scary things that you're talking about here, and the fact that you can bring some levity to it, I just absolutely love. Keep texting, keep emailing. I always get back to you when I can, and I just absolutely love this. So this is pretty scary. I think without the humor, it would have been super creepy as well, but I mean, especially when it comes to laughter and little kids playing, I always get nervous, especially when you have kids like Jason and his wife Jennifer had 2 smaller kids. I always think that there's some kind of kid ghost trying to play with the little kids, but that's how demons always show themselves, as kids, even when they're trying to manipulate adults. So always remember that they can't replicate humans 100%. There always has to be something off. The littlest things, even if they don't have fingernails, you know, something has to be off. They're not permitted to replicate humans. So this is very scary. The cabinets flying open, dishes breaking, you know, especially even if there's a little bit of drinking involved, sometimes angry spirits or demonic entities, negative, lesser spirits, right, will try and make a lot of activity happen when there are adults around drinking, because the adults the next day are going to be like, did that really happen? You know, probably not. So our next story comes from our subscriber Audacity, and she did not give me permission technically to use her real name, so that's what we know her by in the community anyway. Let's get started. Gemma, hello, I am Audacity. I kind of dropped a bit of my story, but would like to explain it more. I just lost my mom this year on March 8th of cancer. Since I was her primary caregiver, we talked a bit more than usual, and this is how I found out that what I thought was a dream was actually a truth. I began to tell her of how I remember picking blueberries with my aunts Doris and Lila up on the plains of Mission Hill, and that cousin Missy was with me. I said that I remember them handing me my bucket and saying to pick more than I eat, that we are going to have a pie. I remember sitting there listening to the forest, hearing the birds, smelling the air, and feeling a presence now that I understand what it was. I stood straight up and told my aunt that I wanted to pick berries over there a bit and pointed by where a tree was down. My Aunt Lila said to stay in sight and not to run off into the woods. As I walked towards the tree, it came into view better. It was squatted down by the roots that were uprooted. As it noticed I noticed it, it stood up, and man was it tall. I remember holding out my bucket and offering it my berries and walking toward it. Now, I had a spot for all animals, so it was a worry to my mother. At one point in time, I brought home a wounded wild seagull to heal. I recall that when it put its hand into the bucket, I grabbed it, turned it over to study it, and poked the palms. I remember sitting on its leg and it purring. But the oddest and most unsettling thing is I recall how it was talking to me in my head. It wanted to know where I lived. I said I don't know, but it wanted me to try to remember. Now, I was only 5 to 6 years old at the time. I had trouble, so I began to draw it in the sand when I heard my aunt call for me. He asked if I wanted to go with him instead. I told him I had to stay with my gram because she was blind and needed help, and I wanted to help her. I left my bucket with him and went to my aunt. She asked me where my bucket was, to which I stated I gave it to the hairy man. She went to where I was and then hurriedly put us in the car, and we left for home. I told my gram who I had met, and she told me it was a bear. I said no because he purred like a cat and I sat on his lap. She was adamant that it was a bear and not to see or talk to those beings again. I insisted why not, because they seemed nice. She stated firmly, they will take me away and I will not be seen again. Not too long after that, I remember seeing it across the road from our house, to which I was told it was someone in a costume going to a birthday party in a costume suit. I even pulled a Nancy Drew that week, and no one had anyone in such a suit, and no birthday on that day. Soon after that, a fence went up around the yard, and I wasn't allowed to go anywhere. I was ridiculed by some cousins saying that I was lying, etc. Then one day, a program came on about Jane Goodall, and we saw a gorilla. I said, that's what I saw, but bigger and taller. Well, my family said there was no way because those gorillas lived in Africa. Fast forward to mine and my mom's conversation. Well, my girl, she said, Auntie Lila came in when she dropped you off that day and was shook up. She said that you need to be watched because she saw a wild man or a Bigfoot walking away with your bucket of blueberries. Things were true then. Wow. Sincerely, Audacity. That's really creepy. As I was reading it, I was wondering what it was going to be. I like the way you did that, where you didn't like come out and right away in the beginning say what it was. A Bigfoot or a wild man. And I like also that you put that difference in there, because there are differences. Obviously, a wild man is a human being, right? I know a lot of people are going to say Bigfoots don't speak, but we don't know that they don't speak telepathically. She said telepathically, right? I have this theory, and I may put it in my book, and I think I've mentioned it before, that the Bigfoot and the Fae somehow work in tandem. And the fact that you brought up berries, from the very beginning, as soon as I heard berries, I thought it was going to be a Fae story, but maybe it was. So I hope that you've never seen this thing again. If you have children, please watch them. And just, wow, totally creepy. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know that it's very hard to sometimes tell these things for fear of ridicule, but I promise anyone that writes into me, I will not allow comments ridiculing, judging, or shaming the person who writes in. I'll try to get to them first if there are any, and honestly, there like never are. So I have such a great community of friends and family on here. Audacity, I'm also very sorry for the loss of your mother. I can't even imagine losing one of my parents. So thanks again. So our next story / encounter comes from another subscriber who calls themselves Slow Motion. Hi, Gemma. Here is a true story for you. I'm giving you the text straight from an email I sent my nephew, which explains the occasional personalization. Feel free to use if you see fit. All I would ask is that you keep my real name private. Slow Motion or Gem would be fine. Hope you enjoy. My name's Gem too. Keep in mind, this is an email sent to his nephew. I don't have time to go through and like depersonalize it, but I thought it would be cooler this way. So he's talking to someone else. He's not talking to us, okay? So think of it as like, I'm reading you a story, only it's real. He's just telling someone else. All right. Well, I promised a tale. I hope it lives up to my hype. Are you sitting comfortably? Then let me begin. You know me well, little brother, by now, so you know that if I am sending you a piece of fiction, I will tell you straight up. Notice me not doing that. It was about June 1986. I was 19 at the time. I was in my mate's house, so we were just shooting the breeze and listening to music, probably Mike Oldfield or Jethro Tull. So about 11:30, my mate's mother lets me know that it's time to hit the road. My mate's house is about 3/4 of a mile from mine. You've been there. About half the way home, I would have to cross a main road to get onto my streets. Then a straight run and a short right turn and home. So, back to leaving my friend's house. It was a very pleasant evening, clear skies at about 20 degrees Celsius, a rarity in Ireland. So I started walking up the street, being self-aware, but wool gathering at the same time. By that I mean where I lived at the time could be a bit rough, so when walking home at night, you always stayed aware of your surroundings. In the back of my brain, there was a little alarm going off as I was walking. Eventually, my forebrain took notice, so my head went on a swivel and I was fully aware of my surroundings now. There's not a soul in sight, yet I have a flight or fight feeling, and all my internal alarms are going off. I see nothing to cause alarm, so I carry on walking. Then I notice the streetlight in front of me winks out. Okay. Odd, but not too weird. I keep walking, and yes, the next light goes out as I am halfway between the two. I look behind me, and the light has come on. Getting a little freaked out now, but keeping it together. Maybe walking slightly faster. You have probably guessed by now that this happens all the way home. The light in front of me goes off while the one behind switches back on. Now, skeptical brain kicks in at this point and says it's just a weird freak coincidence. You were walking along and the electrical grid had a glitch. Yeah. When I crossed that main street I mentioned earlier, I also switched grids. So the second one, connected to my house, also supplied a local hospital, and that never lost power. All right, I hear your damn skeptical comments. But Jem, it could be just one of those 1 in a million things. They happen all the time. I tend to agree. Mad stuff happens all the time. Fast forward 6 months though, my father had a heart attack and was taken to hospital. The hospital he was taken to was specifically designed back in the 1930s to deal with tuberculosis patients, which I am sure you know was highly contagious. Weird parallel, I know. As such, all the wards were separate buildings. So I go to visit the old man, make sure I was still in the will, that kind of thing. He asked me to go to the hospital shop to get him some newspapers, which was a good half mile from his ward. Guess what happened? No urban legend, not a friend of a friend, not a creepypasta. I was that guy. There you go. Gem. Gem. That is very creepy. As someone who, when I was a teenager, used to have to walk about a mile, maybe 3/4 of a mile, kind of the same distance, from my friend's house, which was up by our high school, to home. I remember I would always sing to myself out loud, but you know, not booming loud. So out loud to myself, if that makes sense. But anyway, I used to always sing as I was walking to try to kind of focus myself so that I can kind of turn off that psychic energy that's going to tell me if something was around. It was a really stupid thing to do. And I've had so many weird and creepy experiences on that walk home in Midland Park, New Jersey. This is Ireland, okay? And anyone who's been with me for a long time knows that Ireland is my absolute most favorite place in the world. I've never been there. but I fully intend on at least visiting, at most moving. It's something that's in me. My father's 100% Irish. Ever since I was a little girl and saw my first picture of, I think it was Blarney Castle, I was hooked. And actually my mom used to call me Miss Irish. So that's really creepy. I definitely understand what you mean by you switch to grids, and how would you know that? People are going to ask. But I know that I'm on a different grid than my next door neighbor. So if my power goes out, I can't necessarily call him and be like, hey, is your power out? Because he's on a different grid. So totally get it. And I'm wondering, has anything like that happened ever before or since? Lights going out while you're walking down kind of a dark, desolate, lonely road, to me sounds like a certain kind of activity. It makes me think of alien phenomenon or demonic entities. MIB do it, Black-Eyed Kids do it. So it can be any number of entities or any number of things going on. I definitely agree with you. I don't think it was a coincidence. I don't think it was a one-off or some kind of freak thing, freak occurrence, right? Thank you so much for sending that in. I really appreciate it, and it was super creep. So I'm going to throw one more in. I was going to just do 3, but I'm pretty sure this is the last one I have, at least on this page. So please remember, guys, it's GemmaJadeParanormal@gmail.com. And this one is also from our good friend, Paranormal Jason, I'm going to call him, Jason Zorn. What was that? She cried. I don't know, I screamed as I pounded the wooden blind shut with a hammer as the nails drove in. Did you see it? She shouted. Yes, I freaking saw it. Now shut up, okay? Bang! Something struck the window as I boarded it, a growl outside, then a whimper. Realizing the whimper came from my girlfriend standing next to me in the cabin. Make it go away, she pleaded. If only she knew just how much I wished I could have done that. But I couldn't, and I didn't. Bang! 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 Please make it, she began, just before another bang came just outside the window next to her head, then silence. One of those creepy, eerie silences. I heard myself take a breath, trying to hold a board over the window. I gazed down at my girlfriend, who was in tears now. What is it? She cried. I don't know, I replied, my hands trembling as I held the board. Silence. A wisp heard as my breath slowly exhaled. What is that walking outside our cabin? She asked. Shut up, I said. I'm trying to... Bang! Silencing both of us. Send your fiction stories as well, guys. Jason Zorn, thank you so much. Slow Motion Gem, thank you so very much. And Audacity, I can't thank you guys enough. This was so fun. I absolutely love reading these. I'm waiting on some of you guys to send some things. I just responded now, actually, while I was filming. The camera was still running as I'm like emailing you guys back because I never have a chance to check my emails. But I'm going to go back into Gemma Jade YT. If your emails had gone through like a month ago when I started asking people to resend things before it like completely took a crap on me, like dragons, I'm pretty sure some of yours are in there. I'm going to go back and do that for all of, you know, in the coming videos and kind of combine them with these ones. EW Cash, I'm still waiting for you to send that. I know you had some issues. I know it's a pain in the butt, guys, with the email thing, but I promise you, it's not my fault, and I did everything humanly possible to get Gemma Jade YT back working and functioning, but it's just not possible. I don't know what happened, and I really can't get any answers. I even tried to pay more money, which was a complete waste. So, guys, send me your creepy stories, your creepy encounters, fiction, nonfiction. Just let me know which is which, and I would love to read them for you, and I know my subscribers are absolutely going to love listening. So I already filmed like the ending of the video and everything, and then I came across one more story. I was able to get into the other email, but that's a long story. So let's go with this from our subscriber and friend, part of our dysfunctional family here, Estella Pinkton. Estella, it's so good that I found this. I'm very excited to read it. Hi, Gemma. I was watching one of your videos about the shadow people and sleep paralysis, and it scared the crap out of me. I couldn't finish watching it, but I love you and Steve and want to support you guys. But it was about 2 weeks ago when this occurred. It was around 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night. I was watching TV and was at that stage of dozing off, but I can still hear and feel everything that was going on. I could still hear my boys on their games and what was going on TV. So all of a sudden, I could feel the covers move like my husband was in bed beside me. and I could feel the cool breath, breeze, or air or something on the back of my neck. I instantly knew it wasn't my husband though, because he was out of town. So I feel myself trying to move or try to wake up, and I couldn't. I tried to scream but could only hear myself moaning. In my sleep state, or whatever it was, I started to shout the Lord's Prayer over and over again until I woke up screaming. Scared the crap out of my boys. They came into the room yelling, "Ma, are you okay? What's wrong?" And I'm like, "Nothing, I'm okay." But it felt so real, like my husband was lying behind me. I was scared to even look over on his side of the bed. But the next day I called him and told him about it, and he was like, "Oh man, that did sound too real." But each time that has happened, I start with the moaning trying to wake up and end up waking up screaming. And sometimes when my husband hears me start to do that, he wakes me up. My husband also had an experience like that, without the screaming, LOL. He asked me what the dream was about, and I can't seem to remember. I was on YouTube and your guys' video popped up as a recommended one. I listened and have been hooked ever since. I think that is just amazing what you and Steve are doing. Keep up the good work. You guys are awesome, and thanks for listening. Estella Pinkton. No, Estella, you are awesome. All of you guys that are watching that support me on a regular and constant basis, you guys are absolutely awesome. I wanted to add that one in there. So guys, please send in any of your stories, encounters, even if they're short fiction stories. I would really love to read them. I'm having so much fun with this series already, and I'm only on part 2. So let's keep it going. Not only if you enjoyed this video, or if you enjoyed hanging out with me and spending this time with me, listening to me recount these stories, but also for the people who sent their stories in. Let's have a big thumbs up on this video, guys. Come on, show your support to them as well. This takes a lot of courage and strength. Some people send Steve and I stories of encounters and things that have happened to them that have been absolutely devastating. Like Estella couldn't even finish my shadow person video because she was that terrified. Girl, I'm going to talk to you in private. I have had sleep paralysis my entire life, and shadow people are like an extended part of my family. It's terrifying. It's ridiculous. So yeah, guys, subscribe if you haven't already. Again, give this video a big thumbs up. Spread the love by sharing this video. Also, before you go, be sure and check out the description box for some really important links. Justice for Caleb Smith. Check out the 2-hour live interview we did, Steve Stockton and I, on Missing Persons and Mystery Channels about a month ago with April Arrington, Caleb Smith's mother. Something happened in that stream. Something moved in that stream. We want justice for Caleb. The podcast is still on hold. We just can't seem to get our schedules together, but we're going to do it regardless. So just hang in there with us, guys. It's going to be coming soon. Also in the description box, you will find links to the 3 live streams I do every week with Steve Stockton. Fireside Chat on Sunday nights on Missing Persons and Mysteries. Real Evil on Dezombified's channel on Wednesday nights. And Campfire Stories on Missing Persons and Mysteries, again, on Friday nights. Also links to Patreon and PayPal to make donations to the channel. Be kind to each other. It doesn't cost anything and can make you feel so good, gain you so much. No more masks. You can smile at a random stranger now, and I bet you, dollars to donuts, they're going to smile back. Yeah, that's my jam. I said dollars to donuts. Guys, I appreciate your never-ending and constant support of me and every single thing that I do. You guys are just the absolute greatest family and friends that I have on here. I look forward to filming every single video, seeing all of you in the comments, and I can't express enough how much I appreciate every single one of you who comes to show your support, watches the videos, goes to the live streams, just doing anything you can do to show your girl some love. So yeah, I appreciate you all. Thank you so, so much. Always go in grace. I love you guys so much. I'll see you next time. Mwah. Bye-bye.